Okay, we are live. Um, let me jump straight into it. When I was a teenager, I heard the older boys who had already been um, drafted into the military conscription here in Norway. They said that it's no good if you tell them that you're a pacifist, because the first thing they ask you when they take you into that medical exam, and they question you before you get into the military. The first one of the questions is that, let's say you come down the stairs in your house, and someone is assaulting your family in a very deadly way. What do you do? And if you answer that you will try to fight back, they will say, well, you're not a pacifist, so you're going into the military. um, and Isn't it funny? Because being a pacifist, it does not mean that you won't use violence to protect yourself and your loved ones. Um, but I'm mentioning that just so that we can get back to that. We will be talking about war and all of that, those things happening in Europe now. Europe is heading towards war. Okay. I said yesterday that I would be back on Monday. Here I am, Saturday or Friday night if you're in North America. I was able to sleep 6.5 hours, which makes me feel like a human being again. So that was wonderful. But anyway, I thought, instead of beating myself up and starting to, writing, I'm a novelist, so I'll take this day off and we'll have a chat instead. So here I am. KP Heden, Curtis, these two, Sibylon, Swearingen, Curtis, I already said hello to Curtis. Lots of people are joining now. Hi there, Karuda. Black Pigeon Pilled, Horror Business. Okay, so I will. It's not that you guys have been asking, like, oh, why are you talking against the war? Why are you arguing against a war and so on? You haven't. Well, because you're intelligent. But that seems to be the narrative now. If you do not want the war to spread, if you think that it's a bad idea to send European soldiers into Ukraine, you're on the side of Putin and Putin's regime all of a sudden. And if you do not want, also the narrative is that if you do not want European soldiers moving into Ukraine, boots on the ground and all of that, you're pro-war and anti-peace. And these soldiers will be called peacekeeping soldiers. My guess is that the Russian mainstream media and the Russian propaganda and the general Russian attitude will not be that those soldiers will be peacekeeping soldiers. Black Pigeon Pill says they call you a traitor and a Putin shill. Yes, it's incredibly dumb. Yeah. So, if we go back to the Second World War, because that's often used as an example. Chamberlain was it? He came back from that meeting with the guy with the ugly little mustache, and he said, "There will be peace in our time." And that has been used as an example and of someone who was very naive. And the narrative is that, well, Putin is just like that guy with the ugly little mustache, and if we don't stop this now, we will have the same situation as in the Second World War. Well, that is wrong. Historically speaking, it's you can't really compare because the motivations are different. You're talking, well, if we look at Second World War, we're talking about a desperate nation. We're talking about pure fascism and a very different time. Warfare was also very different back then. Now we are looking at a superpower, not a desperate nation, with an intention of rebuilding the Soviet Empire. I think that's quite obvious, and I do not believe in all these stupid conspiracy theories that kind of are used as an excuse for the Putin regime's attack on Ukraine. I don't believe in any of those stupid conspiracy theories. I think it's very simple. It's about resources, grabbing resources and rebuilding the Soviet Empire. Why do I think that? Because it's obvious, and also because they've said it, more or less. Karura, yes, let's take that argument there. Yeah, you're writing. Just yesterday I heard Putin would knock at our door. We would have to defend ourselves. The question is, would he? Well, it's almost, I think, as a person with a lifelong interest of European history, not being an expert at all, but a realist, I think it's, if we want the war to spread, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. And I'm starting to believe more and more that if we look at this from the Russian side, what would be the most intelligent thing to do if Europe, like European soldiers, moves into Ukraine? And we'll get back to why that is going to happen. But what would be the Russian most intelligent, best way to deal with that strategically? You open a front in another place. So you spread the risk. So I think that if Europe moves into Ukraine, Russia will attack another country. Mark my words. And I hope I'm wrong. Now, what did I just say? I said that, okay, so Russia knocks at the door, we have to defend ourselves. Yeah, I agree. And it's a very, the Karula people will say that. And the logical fallacy is so obvious, it should be obvious to them as well. But here's the thing. Okay, so you're conscripted into the army and you're sent to a foreign country. And the enemy attacks your country. The enemy comes to your house, knocking on your door, breaks into your house. But you won't be there because you're fighting in another country. So it's like if to people who use that argument, I say, well, that's the best. You just given me and yourself a good reason to stay in your country, to stay with your family, not go into not move into the military. You know what you understand what I'm saying? I'm sure you do. Okay. Let's see here. Yes, I use the Soviet Empire as that's what's usually meant, but yeah, it won't be a Soviet system, of course. You're writing is more interested in reviving Tsarist Imperial Russia. Yeah, that's more correct, I guess. Let's see. Now, there is this argument that Russia moved into Ukraine because of NATO. That might be probably part of their motivation, but also I don't think that's the reason. And if you look at the timeline, it doesn't really add up. You have to go back to, well, you have to go back a long, long time. But if you look at the Bucharesti Agreement, where NATO and the USA promised to defend Ukraine if they gave away their nuclear weapons. And they gave away those nuclear weapons. And Ukraine was at that point, before that they did that. They were not a superpower, but a nuclear weapon. It was the European country with the most nuclear weapons. And NATO and the USA broke that agreement, obviously. And a NATO expansion was, you know what, it doesn't really matter so much because it's obvious what the motivation is concerning Russia, and also the motivation, Russia's motivation, doesn't really matter so much at this point. I think we need to relate ourselves to what is happening right now. And what is happening right now is that the war will continue, and only nationalist, stupid, sorry to say this, but people in America with a certain agenda and certain limited life experience will say that no, Europe is too weak and European men are soft and all of that nonsense. Because they know nothing, fucking nothing about European history. I wish they were right, but they're not. Europe will keep this war going, and I was wrong. I said that when Trump pulls out of Ukraine, the war will stop. No, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. Sadly. So we can just look at border towards Russia and guess where will the next front be. You know, I don't know. Most people are pointing at Estonia. I don't know. I don't know. You might also see at Russia building or creating some kind of what's a corridor through Ukraine and attacking Europe through that at the western Ukrainian border. Galadriel says, it appears peace is near, though, thanks to President Trump. I hope you're right, but I fear that you're wrong. It doesn't look like Russia is going to accept any agreements. And I saw that sort of a peace, sort of a very limited ceasefire, a very, very limited. They were talking about agreeing not to attack the power infrastructure, which I believe I have been informed that that's something that Russia has not been very successful with doing anyway, more so with Ukraine. So it wasn't really much. Russia didn't have to give so much to agree on that. And I also think it's important to look at what goes into the so-called minerals deal. And I thought it was a minerals deal, and I said here in one of these live streams that it's about the resources. If you look at that deal, it's called a minerals deal. But someone here wrote, and it was a very good comment, that why minerals? The USA can get minerals somewhere else. And lo and behold, it's not really about the minerals. It's about giving the USA the right and the control when it comes to rebuilding Ukraine. And why would they want that? Well, it's obvious. To establish American companies in Ukraine, to get hold of the resources, not only minerals and all of that. So it's not going to go down in history. Trump is not going to. It's not painting a pretty picture for the history books when it comes to President Trump. He might think so, but also I don't think he's fully informed about everything that is going on. Kingdoms and Kobold says peace may take a while to sort out, and it will be impossible if more countries jump into it and complicate the issue further. The conflict was allowed to go much further than it ever should have. Yes, you're absolutely correct. But I think that what is happening now is that more countries are getting involved. And the narrative here in Norway, and I'm sure it's the same in other countries, is that we should send soldiers to Ukraine. And that scares me. So that is why I'm beating that anti-war drum. That is why I'm going to call these politicians out, because what they're saying when they say that we should send soldiers to Ukraine, what they're saying is that they are comfortable with seeing coffins being returned to Norway. Coffins containing the corpses of kids who had their entire lives ahead of them, while those politicians themselves, they sit in their comfortable offices. And I think that's disgusting. Sending more soldiers to Ukraine will not bring peace. And here's my take on this. Ukraine has lost many, many more people, many more soldiers than they will admit. They have lost a lot more people than the official numbers say. Glenn says Norway is not even in this discussion. I don't know why. No, Norway is discussing sending soldiers to Ukraine. So, yes, you would know that if you were here. And yeah, but anyway, I think that if the war is to keep going, they have to send soldiers into Ukraine, because I think Ukraine now at this point has a big problem, and which is that they are running low on they don't have enough people anymore, so, and I don't know, I don't know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure that if you look at the artillery power that Russia has compared to the artillery power that Ukraine has, if you look at the front line, it would be strange, and it seemed strange to me that Russia should have more casualties than Ukraine. I don't think that's true. I think they are lying about those numbers. And they are lying because Ukraine is lying. And they are lying because if they published or went public with the official numbers of dead soldiers, dead Ukrainian soldiers, they would lose support, because it's a slaughter. It's an eradication of a nation, of a generation. Yeah. Zelensky is the problem. I know a soldier in Ukraine. They are all forced to fight, says Free Laser XD. Yes, I also have got messages from men in Ukraine, and they are saying that, well, I do get some messages that, oh, you're a Putin shill, as someone wrote here, and so on. But I don't think those people are at the front. Yeah, they are forced to fight. And Zelensky does not have the majority support in Ukraine. And it was comical. I heard in the news, the polls, some polls, not Russian polls, but polls that had been made in Ukraine about, do you support Zelensky and so on. And I can't remember the numbers now, but it was far less than 50%. And they said this in mainstream Norwegian news some time ago. They said, so this and that number, less than 50%, still supports Zelensky, said the journalist, and added, so clearly Ukraine still supports Zelensky. And it was like, what? I thought, what are you saying? No, that's when you have less than 50%, it means that most of the people in Ukraine does not support Zelensky, And yeah, Zelensky halted all voting because of the war. But in that case, I think they had to, because how would they have an election when they can't have an election in the occupied areas? Jeff says all soldiers are forced to fight in situations like this, so that fact doesn't seem to make much difference. Well, the fact that soldiers are forced to fight, doesn't that make all the difference? Bluestone says common sense says Zelensky isn't popular at all. Yeah. What's the alternative? Sitting down with the enemy with the intention of stopping the killing. That means that you have to give up territory at this point. So yeah, that's the alternative. But if your goal is, as a Ukrainian president, is to regain the occupied territories, you will not have peace, and the killing will continue. So what scares me is that they talk about a just and fair peace. And if they want a just and fair peace, there will not be any peace. The war will keep going. Uh, so, yeah, again, why am I beating that anti-war drum? I will quote or paraphrase a Norwegian former prime minister who likes cakes. And she said that we need to send an insane amount of money to Ukraine because we need to be on the right side of history. Yeah. Hence my live stream title yesterday, There Goes My Pension Fund. If you want to be on the right side of history, keeping a war going like this is not what you should do. If you want to be on the right side of history, you need to tell Ukraine that, and Russia, that we're going to sit you down and we're going to have peace. Neither of you will be happy with this deal, and Russia will be struck hard, even harder, in all sorts of non-military manners, with boycotts and all of that, if they do not agree to a ceasefire, which will then have to become a peace deal. Give and take. It's of course difficult to force Russia to do anything at all. It's difficult because they can just turn around, literally turn around, turn their back at Western Europe, well, Europe west of Ukraine, and go to their friends, China, Iran, probably India now. Yeah, BRICS. So, but anyway. Yeah, Galadriel is very, very certain that there will be peace. And as I said, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, because I do not want to see kids going there getting killed. I do not want to see that. Yeah, CL, yeah, why would Russia agree to a ceasefire? They have the momentum. Yeah. And I've been hearing since day one that, oh, Russia is struggling. They're struggling so much. And the most idiotic thing I heard in the news the other day was that Russia is struggling because they don't have enough vehicles. Because now we are seeing them using a horse cart to get ammunition to the front and so on. Yeah, that only means that they just take what they can get where they are. That might be civilians being forced to bring them supplies. Who knows? It's yeah. Let's see here. Will you stand with Canada? Says Timothy. I don't know exactly what you mean. I don't think there will be a war between the USA and Canada, but of course, if you're if you mean the statements of Canada becoming the 51st state and all that nonsense, yeah, that's nonsense. And Trump should not have said that, and he's said it several times. I think that one is a very stupid thing to say. And why is he saying that? He's saying that because he wants to be popular with his core audience in the USA. And yeah, but I think that one is not thought through well enough. So yeah, just trolling, says Michael. Yeah, I know. I hear that a lot. Trump is just trolling. The thing is, when you're the president of the USA, what you say must be taken seriously. That's kind of part of the deal. And if you think that you can be president of the USA and keep trolling on social media, which he obviously does, then, it doesn't work that way. Because when the president of the USA says something, it must be taken seriously. There is no other way to deal with that. Yeah. Let's see here. Galader says being nice doesn't get the job done. Okay. I think people who work in real life situations running companies, they would disagree with you there, but okay. Let's see here. Yeah. Yeah, Ghost Rider 1776 says, when Donald Trump's talking SHIT, I think you mean, he means every bit of it, believe me. Yeah. At least we need to approach it as if he is. Yeah. But what do you think about that Russian? He's a nationalist, but he is in the equivalent of a parliament in Russia. Last night he said that Russia should annex Alaska because it's Alaskan territory. He said no, it's Russian territory. What's his name again? Do you remember? They already are changing the name. If you look at Google now, but that only applies if you're in Russia. Apparently, Alaska has been renamed. It's Eastern Russia. Yeah, they don't acknowledge that deal where the USA bought Alaska. So, what do you think about that? And apparently, they're going to put that into the whole peace deal equation. It's funny how it works. No, I'm just kidding, of course. It's my little joke, and I say that when Americans in this live stream in the chat seems a little bit too comfortable with Trump's claims of grabbing Canada and other areas. Because you wouldn't like it if it was you. That's the fucking point here. Okay? Yeah. Now, back to the topic. Here. It's anti-war. Anti-war. I received yet another message a couple of days ago from a mother. And I was given she told me that I asked her, and she said I could read out the message in a video if I asked her, and she said, yes, okay, you can do that. So I'm going to do that probably on the main channel. I get quite a few of these messages, and it's heartbreaking. And if you're a human being with a functional, emotional, if you're functional in an emotional way, it will make you cry. The price of war is really, war is underpriced when these politicians make decisions. It's like they've forgotten the cost of war. And it was a mother, her son was sent to Afghanistan straight out of, he just had a few months of training, he was sent to Afghanistan. B. Hendricks, so kind of you. You gifted one membership. Thank you. So basically, she described the nightmare, how horrible it was to have a son fighting in Afghanistan. She was from the UK. I've heard the same stories here in Norway. Norwegian, maybe not kids, because it was mostly, more like elite soldiers being sent to Afghanistan. But I've heard some stories, the family back here in Norway, and you have the son fighting in a foreign country, and it's something people don't talk about so much. But this is the cost of war. And then, we had a book was written actually about one of the Norwegian soldiers who died. I think he died in Afghanistan. And all for, that with Biden, it's what the Biden did there, leaving weapons, leaving everything. It was for nothing. It was for nothing, and people died for nothing. And that seems to be the case in most cases. And I think it will be the case in Ukraine as well. And now it's only a matter, listen, it's only a matter of time before this is not a Ukrainian war or a war between Ukraine and Russia, and they might keep naming it that, but it's only a matter of time before this is a European war. European war. And we will have young men and women being sent there to die. Not to die, but they will die there. And many more will be injured for life. And back home, you will have the families, and this is not often talked about, but the families suffer. They have typically they get post-traumatic stress syndrome. And this mother in the UK, she wrote that she got afraid of the phone. She got afraid of hearing the sound of someone knocking on the door because she feared that that would be someone with a message that her son was dead. So when we have in the near future, we will have a European war, and I said I want to be on the right side of history. Yeah, the right side of history is, if you want to be on the right side of history, I can guarantee you that you need to be one of those people who spoke out before the war in Ukraine became the European war. You spoke out and you said, these people, Russia and Ukraine, everyone involved, they need to sit down and agree on a ceasefire. It needs to happen. Russia will keep the majority of the occupied areas, or all of them. Ukraine needs to agree on that. Is it fair? Is it just? No. But that's the only way to stop the killing. And I'll keep beating that drum. We all should. Free Laser XD says, we will have no war in Europe because nobody will fight in Europe. Okay. Maybe you're kidding. But if you're conscripted here in Norway, and this goes for most countries, I guess, in Europe, if you're conscripted and drafted into the army and you say, no, I won't do that, they will come and get you. The military police, and I've seen those cars, because they will send out the cars when people refuse. They will send out the cars and they go to your house and they say, you must come or we will handcuff you and bring you with us. So it's not like you have a choice. The only thing you can do to avoid that is to escape, literally escape, to go living in the woods, like with no contact with humans. That otherwise they will get you. Yeah, Ian says they drag them off the streets. I have seen the videos. Yes, in Ukraine they do that. Yeah. And Thump the sweaty fat guy says all of Europe is disarmed. You are dependent on the government, so they own you. Yeah, that's the typical American attitude. So, first of all, you're writing all of Europe is disarmed. No, that is incorrect. This has to do with the hunting culture, and it here in doesn't go for all countries, but I mean Switzerland, they have a lot of guns, and Scandinavia also. So we are not disarmed. Also, a lot of people have their as part of the preparedness here, they have their weapon from the army in their house after There are 12 mandatory months in the military. So dependent on the government, no. Some people probably, but I don't like that attitude that you're showcasing there. I don't like it, mostly because it's not true. New World Order says you won't get drafted if you have family that is involved in or works for the government. Again, I wish that was true, but I can tell you from personal experience that that's not true. It is not true. They don't care. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, I was getting to that. Good point. Thank you for reminding me. JG Inter 1981 says, I wonder how many people connect war with population culling. There's a theory out there. It's a conspiracy theory, I guess. And I have to say that, and it goes like this, and I'm sure you've heard it. They'll get rid of the native European population and replace it with a more docile foreign population. I'm not saying that they are starting wars just to have that done, but it certainly seems like I'm going to be very careful here, but after a big war, power shifts. It's not the same after war. And if we now have a European war, which I think is very likely, it's going to drain European nations of people. And I said that I think Ukraine is lying when it comes to the number of casualties, Ukrainian casualties. I think the numbers are much, much higher. And I think that at least part of the reason why it seems like we will have soldiers in Ukraine from other European nations now very soon is that they do not have enough soldiers in Ukraine anymore. They do not have enough people. And it doesn't really take more than a few years of war to change the ethnic makeup of a country. Let's say we're talking about countries that already have not. We do not have enough young people because people are not having enough babies. So we don't have enough young people here. So let's say we add to that we have a lot of the people in the age group 18 to 25 killed. Well, that's going to make a major shift in the ethnic makeup of that country. They're going to allow for more immigration, and they're going to say we have to have more immigration because we don't have enough young people here. you know. I'm not saying that that is the motivation, but I'm saying that that's very well what we could end up with. And yes, it's being mentioned here that the casualties, the real numbers of casualties, 1 million on each side in Ukraine. I've heard that, I've seen that number elsewhere, and I think that's much closer, sadly, much closer to the reality than the official numbers from Ukraine. Azteca is saying, do you think the immigrants from other countries will want to fight and die for Norway or Germany? Well, it's if you are a Norwegian citizen, it doesn't matter, because they don't, you're not excused from the army if your ethnic background is from a different country. It's only the citizenship status that matters. But of course, not all. What do they do after the war? Not when, yeah, as I said. Kingdoms and Kobolds is basically, if I should sum up what I or recap what I said, I could just read that comment. I'll read it here. Make the people too poor to afford having children. Use the excuse of declining birth rates to import more subservient people. Send the quote-unquote problem population that expects freedom to die in war. Yeah. Yeah, Galadriel has nailed it. Yeah, it's being mentioned there, Michael. Anti-Christian, anti-Slav. I don't think, you know what? I don't think anti-Christian is. That's. They say that religion is the cause of many wars. I think religion in many cases is just a code word for money and power. I don't think there's any anti-Christian motivation between the war in Ukraine. So let's see. Yeah. Scandinavian Earthlab says Scandinavian countries should move away from any war promotion. Being neutral was more profitable always. If we look at World War II, Norway was occupied, and it was occupied in a couple of days, basically. And then you had, except you had fighting up north, and the Norwegian resistance kept fighting throughout the war. And one of my relatives back then, he was in the resistance and was killed by the Nazis. And they fought for freedom. And let's not kid ourselves. It was a fascist, undemocratic, tyrannical, and cruel regime here in Norway and in the other occupied countries as well. So we fought against that. Yeah. But Sweden was neutral. Now, it's difficult to compare because Sweden has a different strategic position, and Germany, or the not Germany, but the Nazi empire, they needed the coastline to fight the UK and so on. So it's difficult to compare, but it's, at least we can say that Sweden had it much easier during the Second World War. Acton says, you created Quisling. What? I don't know what you mean there. Quisling was the guy who was the puppet dictator of Norway, so to speak, while it was occupied. And in my family on the father's side, there's a story that, and the story goes like this: some of my father's uncles were in that group of people who they grabbed Quisling and his wife and they robbed their house. And apparently somewhere in, probably my father has it still, he has a ring, or maybe someone else in that part of the family has the Quisling's Nazi ring, and they robbed the house, and of course they were shot. Quisling and his wife, they were killed. So yeah, but I was trying to say that Sweden had an easier time because of their neutrality. It also kind of makes Sweden look bad in a way because, well, at least that's what some people are saying, because they allowed for German troops to move through Sweden and so on. But I think it's unfair because, yeah, it's unfair to say that. Finland was not neutral. Finland had to fight the nation, or the superpower that has been called the victor of the Second World War, which was Stalin's Soviet Union. So I'm sorry to hear that. Sugar Knug says one of my relatives was tortured and killed in Grini. Grini was a concentration camp, a horrible prison in Norway during the Second World War. Great-grandfather liberated parts of southeast Norway 2 days before the war. Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess, if someone cares to listen through this entire live stream, they will say, first, you are saying that we shouldn't have keep the war going in Ukraine, and then you're saying that you kind of talk about the resistance in Europe fighting the Nazis who occupied Norway and all of that. So you're a hypocrite. But listen, it boils down to this, okay? Are you going to first of all, first question, are you going to force people to fight in a war? Are you going to drag people off the street? Are you going to take sons and daughters out of their homes, remove them from their mothers and fathers, and send them to be killed in a war. If you think that's okay, well, actually, you have to think that's okay. You have to think that that's necessary in order to defend a war, to keep going, to keep a war going. That's the first thing, because that's the reality. And secondly, when first you have a war and you're being attacked and you are in the middle of it, you have to fight, because at that point you don't have any other options. But that doesn't mean that we should that fighting is what we should do. Like, I'm trying to say that we should always try to stop wars. We should always try our best to stop the killing. Yes, when you're in the middle of it and you're being attacked, you have to defend yourself. But we should always try to stop a war. And if a war is to stop, you need to forget the concept of a just peace or a fair peace, because it's not going to happen. And yeah, there's a lot more I could say about that, but let's get to the chat instead. Blue Kachina says there won't be war. Stop talking about war. Sadly, I think that you're wrong. I think that the war will spread. As I said, that's why I'm talking about this. European soldiers, there will be boots on the ground in Ukraine. European soldiers, Norwegian soldiers, French, British, German, and so on, soldiers in Ukraine. And when that starts, you have opened a box, so to speak, to resources like millions upon millions of people that can be poured into that meat grinder. So no, I will not stop talking about war. I will keep beating the anti-war drum. Oh, okay. You're making a war in your head, says Blue Kachina. You need to consider your ways a little bit. Science says Europe is completely not ready for war. Okay, Europe has been involved in every war that the USA was involved in since like forever. So that's not true. Positivity says, wish you would talk with your leaders. You're a writer. Well, they don't want to listen to me. I'm a persona non grata, as they say, because I would just be accused of, oh, you don't know anything. You have listened to Russian propaganda and you're stupid and all of that. No, I'm just they just ignore me. So yeah, and I think that when this whole thing started, when the war in Ukraine started, I said, you know what? I don't think this will be solved. I said to people, I don't think this can be solved with just sending weapons into Ukraine. And people would nod and they would say, yeah, that's probably true. And lo and behold, now what are we seeing now? Well, the war is still going on, isn't it? And then now people will say, if we hadn't done that, then Ukraine would have been occupied now. Yeah. First of all, that doesn't sound very nice. But also, doesn't that kind of mean that there would be no war anymore? Or am I wrong? I don't know. Um, so, um, yeah, but also, like the Norwegian Prime Minister actually said, because people were starting to become racist is not the right word because it's a nationality, not a ethnic group, but people were becoming very hateful towards Russians in Norway. And the prime minister would say, we don't want to see any of that. They're not saying that anymore. It's all about Russia and Russians are bad. And I was at the party. I'll never go to those parties again, by the way, but like a publishing house party. And the Norwegian, there are two Norwegian reporters in Ukraine, and one of them was there, and he was drunk, and he said, Russians are pigs. And he said he said that he had never met a nice Russian person. That was the reporter, one or two reporters. Do you think he's going to be objective in his reporting from the war? No, he's not going to be objective because he's an idiot. He's a hateful idiot. So, yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, Clint says it's a meat grinder. Now they want to send in young men from the UK, France, Germany, etc. And they are calling to repopulate Ukraine with foreign men. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I think that officially only a few countries have said that they want to send soldiers into Ukraine, and that's UK, France, Germany. I know they're talking about it in Poland, and they are talking about it here in Norway. And I know about Norway because I live here, and I know that they are talking about it. And the prime minister has said that it's not going to happen right now until they know the conditions for that assignment. But nobody here is, well, I know one politician who's saying, no, we should not do that. But it seems to be a consensus among the political parties that we might have to do that. That's what they're saying. So, yeah. Someone asks her, will there be new world war? I'm not saying there will be a new world war. I'm saying a new European war. And European war meaning that Europe will fight in Europe, and the European nations, all of them or most of them, will be involved. Yeah, of course. Charlie says, I have worked with a Russian electrician that left to avoid mandatory military service. He was smart and nice guy. Yeah. Here's the thing. We have people, of course, in Russia, people leave, or they left when they could leave, because make no mistake, Putin is a tyrant. I mean, don't kid yourself. He's a dictator and he's a tyrant. And it's very popular to say that Zelensky is bad, but come on. It's very naive if you can't see that Putin doesn't care about human suffering in Ukraine. He doesn't care. So we had quite a lot of Russians escaping, and that when they could, before they said that you can't leave because we might send you to the front in Ukraine. So saying says Putin is no dictator. You aren't just spewing NATO propaganda. Okay. Are you? Oh, irony. Sometimes it's difficult to catch the irony, but I see your smiley face there. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's quite obvious that he's a dictator. But anyway, we have people from Russia here, and they escaped because they did not want to be sent to fight in Ukraine. And what did the Norwegian government do? Well, they said, you're not getting refugee status here, so we're sending you back to Russia. And I think that's not only stupid, but also quite cruel, you know? So, yeah. Yeah, Jeff says, anyone thinking of going to Russia to live unless your name is Snowden and you need it to survive is just naive. Yeah, I think you're right. Well, I've been to Russia and it was a beautiful place and nice people, very friendly people. Except the prostitutes in the hotel lobby, which is something that you see in certain countries, and it's never nice. It's very sad. But people were nice, and it was clean, and I was in St. Petersburg. You need to go there to kind of as part of your cultural education, I think. And the Russians I've met here have been, have been very nice, of course. And we had a few years ago a couple of young guys in the powerlifting club, and they're Europeans and they integrate easily. And because of that, we have a situation here in Norway where you have a lot of people that are Russians, but they speak perfect Norwegian. They've been here for years. They don't support Putin. They don't support the war. They just want to have a normal life, and they are, what I've heard is that they don't say that they are Russians anymore because they are facing that hate. Which is obviously unfair. Let's see. Yeah, Muriel studied Russians for 2 years at university. Oh. Well, it is one of the, most important cultures when it comes to culture, books and art. Yeah. I had the option of studying Russian at high school, Norwegian high school, but I chose French and Spanish instead, and because I thought Russian is. Everyone said it's very difficult. It probably is, but kind of wish I had studied Russian. Yeah. Oh, we have this blue Kachina kid. I kind of get blue Kachina. I kind of get, why I didn't just kick you out, because I kind of get the impression that you're not very old. And you're writing that I am not the brightest bulb in the hood. So that's me. I'm not the brightest bulb in the hood. We'll keep you around for a little while. You might be able to learn something if you stick around. And I'm pretty sure you're not very old. So just stick around. Try to be respectful. There are people here in the chat and that have life experience that you don't have. So you can learn a lot if you stick around. So, Hotep says, I studied Mandarin in middle school. Wish I kept up with it more than that. Still know French pretty well. That's well done. I forgot all my French because I never used it, and the Spanish too, never used it. Are you currently learning Spanish? Yeah, Spanish is, they say it's easy to learn up to a certain level. So, yeah. Let's see. Let's see here. Muriel, let's see. Even more languages? I missed that comment. Let's see. Thumper, sweaty fat guy, says, I got to know Russians when I was stationed in Korea. Wonderful people. Loaded cargo on IL-76s in Kuwait and AN-124s in 2004. I have no problems with them at all. Governments, that's different. Yeah. It's always like that, People are generally nice. I truly believe that, they're not bad. Well, of course, there are bad people around, but most people are nice people. And it's not their fault that their governments are not okay. Let's see here. Now, I'm just trying to get the context of the comments here now. Yeah, well, okay, yeah, lots of people here are learning languages, have learned languages, and I think that's great. Yeah. And learning about foreign cultures, learning languages is a great way of it's preventing war, I would say, because the more we try to understand other cultures, not saying we should be like those other cultures, but the more we are in touch with other cultures, the less prone we are to give into hate and things like racism and all of that. And we must never forget that the people have the power. And that is why the powers that be, the people, the politicians, they always use propaganda to brainwash the population, because they know that they have to do that. They have to make, for instance, here in Europe, in order to avoid massive protests, they have to make people here hate Russians. I mean, why would you be willing to shoot someone that you don't know, that you never met, that you can hardly even see, at the battlefield, someone at the other side. Why would you do that? Yeah, I get it. If there's like they're coming towards you, you have to. Then you have to. But why would you kill people that you've never met, that just because they're in that army, that the Russian army? Why would you do that unless either you're forced to it, like you will be sentenced either to prison or death if you don't, or you have been taught to hate people just because they're Russian, So they work with propaganda. And it is insane that a lot of people, they walk around here in the West, in Europe, and they think that they're not subject to governmental propaganda. Oh, it's something that it's just the Russians doing that. And it's equally insane that people in the USA, they think that they are not subject to propaganda. You think that the Trump administration is not deeply involved in propaganda? Of course they are. Of course they are. Yeah, New World Order, if they're shooting at you, there isn't much choice. As I said, if they're coming towards you, of course, you have to defend yourself. Yeah. And you know what? It's also, it's funny how it works. You don't like to be exposed as someone who believed in the propaganda. We don't like that. We don't like that. And I used COVID as an example. Some of us, we said that, listen, maybe look into the proper facts concerning that injectable cough medicine. Maybe look into it, find that proper information yourself, and then make an informed decision. And then we were called, people like me, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist and all of that. And now I think there are not that many people left out there who would say that, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist because of what you said back then. Because now we know that it did come with quite a few side effects. So it's but people would call you a conspiracy theorist because of the propaganda. And we are seeing the same now. It's the propaganda here in Europe, at least. It goes like this. We have to fight Russia because of Putin, who is insane, and he will attack other countries if he is given territories in Ukraine. Zelensky is a hero, a selfless hero, and we need to support them with much, much more money and weapons so that the war can be won and the Russians can be pushed back, and the the pre-war borders can be re-established. That's the propaganda. That's the message. And also that Russians are bad. That's the message. And it makes me a little bit like I want to shake people, grab them by the shoulders and shake them a little bit, because I want to say, wake up. Can't you see how naive those statements are? It can't be that simple. It can't be like that. It can't be true. Just think a little bit about this. No, I said that's the propaganda. I mean, I don't think that. Yeah. Oh dear. I just said what the message in the propaganda in Europe is. I don't think that is true. I, I think that's obvious. It was like a quote, right? Uh, so yeah, this Kachinka kid is gone for a day now. Put him in timeout. Let's see. And well, Simon, thank you for saying that. You're saying that every country has independent news media. I mean, even Bjorn can be considered as such. I would rather say that I'm not. I won't claim to be a news media, but if these live streams can make people question things and to make people become more interested in looking behind the propaganda, so to speak, then that's a good thing, you know. Let's see. Let's see here. Thumper, the sweaty fat guy. That is what media is supposed to do, exactly what you do. Well, a good pointer, yes. But mainstream media has changed. Maybe it was always like it is now, but what I don't like to see is opinion pieces, as they call it on mainstream media, when they tell you what to think. And I think the one who's doing that the best, or he did it the best, is Tucker Carlson on Fox News when he was there. And he would do these monologues where he would tell you what to think. And I sometimes agreed with what he said, but I did not like the way it was said. Like, it was almost like I felt like, this guy, he thinks that people are children that needs to be told what to think. And we see it when these. Have you seen when a journalist interviews another journalist? They do that a lot now, at least here in Norway. So instead of interviewing people who is actually involved in the matter, they will interview another journalist, and then they get it's then it becomes like, one, let's say a left-leaning, for example, journalist, who will then interview another left-leaning journalist, and it gives the illusion that that's the truth. Their narrative is the truth because it's in the form of an interview. So, Clint, thank you so much. You gifted memberships. That's awesome. Let's see. I think Clint, that you can't really choose people. It's like random, I think, when you gift memberships. George Kim says, "What's up with Norway apparently refusing to refuel U.S. naval ships?" Yeah, that's an interesting thing. It's not Norway refusing that. It's one of the major companies that is refueling U.S. and other naval ships, and they said that we will not be doing that. And it's in that's their right. They can choose not to do that. And apparently it was about Trump and Greenland and all of that. And they said that this is how we will punish the USA because of their attitude towards foreign countries. That was their what they said. So yeah, it's their right to refuse to do that. I can't remember the name of the company now, but it is one of the, or maybe the major company. They go out to these ships with fuel. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, but maybe it's presented in the USA as if Norway is refusing to refuel U.S. naval ships. I don't know. I don't know. Oh yeah, anti-US. Oh yeah. Muriel says people I know in Canada are getting pretty rabid anti-US. Pro-Canada is great. The other a slippery slope, understandable, but still, yeah. In Norway, after the Greenland thing, I've never seen a shift in attitude happening so fast. I mean, it was insane, and I've said it before, but I think it's very difficult to find anyone who will do anything other than laugh at Trump and the current American administration. Laugh in contempt. It's yeah. So it's this thing, from the US that now we will be respected. No, the opposite is happening. Do I think that it's okay to that attitude, that anti-US attitude? No, I don't think that's okay. I'm just telling you that's what is happening. So yeah. I think what provokes people here most are the lies. Trump is telling lies. He is. I mean, it's easy to fact check, and not only Trump, but the American narrative about Europe. It's easy to fact check, and when you do that, it's also very difficult to respect these people because they should be better informed or they are just lying. For instance, it's this thing about NATO countries. How much do you spend of your GDP? How much does a country spend of their GDP on the military, their defense budget? The USA is not on top, but maybe that seems to be what Americans are thinking. Oh, the America spends more than compared to the GDP spends more than any other NATO country on their military. No, it's not true. It's not true. If you just look at the numbers, it's easy to see. So, you know, and I think that it's a shame because a lot of what Trump is saying makes perfect sense. It's just a shame the way he's saying it, and also that either he doesn't get the numbers right or he's straight out lying. And Galadir, you can't compare you can't compare the number, like the amount of money, with European countries because the USA is a much bigger country than any European country except Russia. Um, it's it would be more fair to compare the USA to, for instance, continental Europe, all the nations together. You know, Poland is on top. Poland is the NATO country spending the most in relative to their GDP. Hotep says it's what happens when your vice president president gets their information from memes and headlines. Baron Arcanus, you're saying there's countries with more military spending than the USA? Well, yeah, of course, relative to the GDP, yes. But when it comes to the number, like amount of millions of dollars, I think the USA is on top in the world. I'm that one you would have to check. You will have to fact check me on. I don't know. China, I don't know. No, I think the USA is still on top. Yeah. Ghost Machine says, "Don't worry, USA is still number one in perpetual wars." Yeah. Okay. 900 billions USA and China 300 billions. Steve, yes. Yeah, I couldn't remember the Chinese number there. So now that we are talking about American politics, we often do that. It's fascinating, you know. What if Harris had won? Contrary to popular opinion, it was a close call, actually. And I think that if old man Biden had not had such a big ego and let Harris run a complete campaign, who knows what would have happened? I don't know. But what if Kamala Harris had been the president now? Of course, you would in the USA have. No, I'm not an expert on this. I'm not in the USA, obviously, but so I might be wrong here. But you would then have had that complete woke thing that would just keep going. Um, and Ukraine would still have lots of, well, the USA would still have been channeling money and weapons and all of that into Ukraine. And I think that we would not have seen any talks at all with Russia. But I don't know, when it comes to like Israel and Gaza, um, Trump seems to be all in on that genocide there. And I don't know Kamala Harris's position on that and the Democrats' position on that. I don't know. I don't know. Sane says the current war would now be a world war. Yeah. I'll trust you guys in the chat now, because some of you are in the US, so your opinion absolutely matters here. Let's see. Grassland says, I never thought the Democrats would be the pro-war, anti-free speech party, but it happened. Unfortunately, the pendulum is swinging and the right is worryingly going back to that. Yes, it is interesting how that seems to happen. And when it comes to free speech, and this was in the mainstream news here in Norway yesterday, that a friend told me, and I checked, yes, actually, some German backpackers had been arrested in the USA because of some things that they had posted on social media that was apparently anti-Trump. And an example was also given concerning an Palestinian student who had a green card. He was studying in the USA, but he had been protesting against Israel at the university or something, and he was put in prison for that, apparently. These things, sometimes there is more to these things than we know. But it certainly seems that the new administration in the USA, it looks like it's not really a free speech, in support of free speech. It's more like, as it has always been, it's free speech is great as long as it's our speech. The ads, oh yeah, I can't do anything about the ads. The ads, YouTube will put ads based on, now actually based at, they say, based on the individual profile. So AI is coming in here and putting ads in individually. I don't know, but I can't do anything about the ads. Carola says several Europeans were put into jail in the USA. Okay. Charlie says allegedly Trump is Machiavellian and he met Melania at the Kit Kat Club. I don't know what the Kit Kat Club is, but it kind of sounds like something that is for adults or something. Let's see here. Yeah, and here's another Mother Nature. You're referring to vote fraud, like a rigged election. You think the election was rigged, this election now? And if it was, do you think that both the Democrats and Republicans rigged it or tried to cheat, or only one side? Muriel, oh, yeah, you've been getting Viagra ads. Yeah, that's the beauty of AI. It's so great with AI, you know. AI is so great, and YouTube loves AI. YouTube must put AI everywhere in every function of the platform, and that's why you get Viagra ads. Yeah. Uh, the Palestinian guys, I don't know. I'm just mentioning it. And as I said, I'm not in the USA. I don't know the whole story. Um, yeah. Now, so a little bit difficult to get the context, but I'm informed that the Kit Kat Club is a German adult club, strip club. Oh, what a beautiful romantic story. Hi, Debbie. Now we're talking about the Kit Kat Club, which I'm informed is a strip club. So yeah, we have been talking for a while. Technocrats rigged it. Democrats rigged it. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. Who knows what happened there? Patricia says it's also a candy bar. Okay. Well, oh, Kit Kat it's a candy bar, not like a bar where you drink. Oh, yeah. I had to think a little bit. Kit Kat is a candy bar. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. A little bit difficult to see the context. Trump is just an old school liberal, pretty based, but with a blind side. The real factor is the left who will buy their. Yeah, I find Trump's alliance with Christian nationalists interesting and scary. And it's a strange thing to witness because it's so obvious that Trump is not. He's not. He might say he's a Christian. Maybe he thinks he's a Christian. That's nice. That's okay. Wonderful. But his life, the way he's living is obviously not according to the teachings of Jesus, so to speak. But I get it. To these Christian nationalists, they're not talking so much about Jesus. They're talking about God, which is convenient because Jesus is seen very woke now. And that movement should be watched. It should be watched, and it is because there's something there that could anchoring, I believe, the USA to a very dark place, far removed from the teachings of Jesus, by the way. But I think that Trump knew that he needed their votes. So, yeah. Laura says the Trump and Christian nationalist connection is troubling. And I should probably do a separate live stream on the thing where the latest thing now coming from those people is that empathy is unchristian. Empathy, like having empathy with people, is not really a Christian thing. Which is, I'm not a Christian, so I'm but I have some objections to that. So yeah. I think there was a guy who walked around in sandals, probably. He had probably long hair and a beard, like me. And often he's depicted as a very European-looking guy. And he got in trouble with the authorities a couple of millennia ago. And I think he would have disagreed that Christianity, well, there was no Christianity back then, of course, but his message was basically about empathy, was it not? Am I wrong? The Christian message, is it not about empathy? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. As I said, I'm not a Christian, but I thought it kind of was about empathy. And when these people are saying that empathy is can be toxic empathy. Well, I'll leave it up to them to figure it out. But let's just put it this way. They might be a little bit surprised if the whole thing with heaven and hell is a real thing. Then maybe they will be a little bit surprised when they wake up after death and they, instead of seeing Jesus, they see a guy with a couple of horns in his forehead, smiling with a pitchfork. Welcome to the barbecue. So yeah, I think you can either be basically either you can be a true Christian, or you can be like a no. You know what? I'll leave it there. Let's see. Would you like breadsticks with your eternal burning? Yeah. The hell thing is obviously it's invented by the church to scare people into obedience. I think it's very obvious. I mean, it's not difficult to find out, which actually makes the whole message about Christianity a bit nicer, doesn't it? The original message, which I think is about empathy. Because let's face it, it was a culture back then that was not really very empathetic. So it must have been almost revolutionary to have a guy walking around talking about empathy. empathy with those people who were seen as a nuisance and like what do you call them, tollere in Norwegian, tax collectors, prostitutes, and sick people, and so on. Yeah, must have been seen as revolutionary and very provoking towards the politicians back then. And yeah. Yeah, good point, Ian. Even animals show empathy and they follow no religion. Yes. Don't get me wrong here. Of course, empathy is not something that the first Christian invented. Obviously not. It's easy to find, to see empathy, and to see that empathy was a thing before that. If you read ancient texts and so on, you look at art. So yeah. And I'm not going to even claim that like Jesus is a historical person. I think that if I had to bet, I would bet he was, but a lot of people here will say he certainly was. But it actually doesn't really matter so much, because it's the story that matters, and the message. So yeah. But anyway, 10 tigers. What do you think about arranged marriages? Arranged marriages. That's you're being funny. What I think about arranged marriages? Well, they should never happen. What do you want me to say? Blue Eye says the Bible is not a novel. No, it's not a novel. It's a collection of stories, myths, some historical references. It's not a history book. Sorry, you don't like that to hear that probably, but it's not, obviously. But it's one of the more important collections of ancient stories and myths and texts, obviously. Yeah. Yes, Baron Arconus, much of the biblical narratives are recycled from the Greek epics, actually. Yeah, it's not so difficult to, when you look at the Bible. It's very interesting as well, but you can't discuss it with people who think that it's literally the truth, every page of it. Then it's impossible to talk about it. But it doesn't take away anything about from the Christian message. It doesn't take anything away from it. But it's like, listen, nobody walked on water, and I don't think it was ice. So listen, I mean, can we agree on that? So obviously some of that is myth. It's like I could go to my culture and the ancient texts there and claim that that's the truth, but it's obviously not. So Galadriel says not all of it is myth. No, not all of it. Absolutely not. It's because you can cross-reference many of the things mentioned in the Bible, and it goes into what we know happened actually in that time period. Now the Norse myths are also, they didn't come about in a vacuum. Let's not kid ourselves. So of course they were, people back then were inspired by stories they heard, other people's understanding of the universe, life and death, and and because they traveled, and again, it doesn't take anything away from the beauty or the message. um, and I think that's the right way to understand these. Well, the origin, the text, the old ancient text, and the origin of religions and faiths and so on. So you can't really have an intelligent discussion with someone who believes that the Earth is 5,000 years old or 8,000 years old, and that dinosaurs never existed, or that there were dinosaurs, that Noah had dinosaurs in the ark. And I mean, you kind of disqualified yourself from having an intelligent discussion about anything if that's your take on it. And also, I believe you have disqualified yourself, not you guys, but you in those people, I mean, have disqualified themselves from having an intelligent conversation about Christianity, if they believe everything in the Bible in a literal sense. It just doesn't make sense. um, so let's see. I see you says all religions have passed down stories, all societies. Hold on. Where did you go? Yeah, all societies have these stories, moral, with a moral message. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've read Greek mythology. I've read, of course, Norse mythology, a little bit Slavic mythology, and some that would be the East Coast Native American mythology. That's what I've tried to concentrate on. And there are similarities, many similarities, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, Bjorn Archon says, I'd like to add Slavic mythology to my work. Actually, I need a pantheon of 9. Maybe you can help. Well, I can say look into Slavic mythology. It's very interesting, especially when you look at it in the context of being a culture with a lot of contact with other cultures. According to the Bible, the earth is flat. Well, yeah, that's the image of how it was created. But you need to look at that, of course, as the reason I'm a little bit stuttering here is that I actually don't know how well known it was at that time that the Earth is a sphere. And I can't remember when. I mean, this Greek guy, I always forget his name. He calculated the circumference of the Earth. But did people think that the Earth was flat, like normal people, and for how long did they think that? I know that the flat Earth thing is it's always funny to talk about, but now. Oh, am I wrong there, Laura? The Bible doesn't teach that the Earth is flat. I remember incorrectly then, but isn't it like he put the pillars there and the thing on top, the sky? But anyway, the firmament. Yes. Thump here, the sweaty guy says the firmament. That was the word I was looking for. Is a giant terrarium. Eratosthenes, yes, came very close to the circumference of the Earth. Thank you. There are quite, the Norse. We don't really know for sure, but I'm pretty certain they had an understanding of the Earth being round. Also because of their understanding of everything being a circle and everything goes in a circle, it's a non-linear thinking that they have, you know. But it's interesting. When did the common man, did he think that the Earth was flat, and for how long did he think that? Obviously, when they started to sail around the globe, then they knew. Before that, they knew that it was not flat. So I don't know. It's interesting that now we have people believing the Earth is flat again, because they've been on they have taken a flight from intercontinental flight, and they couldn't see the curvature of the Earth from their window in the airplane. So yeah. No, I don't think that the flat Earth is. I think they just want the attention. So are the Amish flat earthers? I've heard that before. Amish people, do they think that the Earth is flat? And how do they kind of navigate their lives when they think that the Earth is flat? I don't know. Do they think the Earth is flat? Boat says the oldest seafaring cultures are Indonesians so far, and they were not flat earthers in centuries before Christ. Mr. Sorpo says, I still say send flat earthers on an expedition in the world. They'll come around eventually. I love your little dad joke there. Yeah. The Amish frequently do think that. Well, I read somewhere that it's actually a millennial thing, that it can be measured in percentage now, how many people in that generation that think the Earth is flat. Um, but I don't know. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't see how you can. I don't see how you can believe that. But so I recently I said that you can't really believe the Earth is flat if you live by the sea, because you will see ships and sailboats vanish behind the horizon, and you see them sinking down, like, and then you see the mast, and the mast goes down as well. And I said that maybe if you live in the Midwest and you've never seen the ocean, then it's easier to see the Earth is flat. Now, I've never been to the Midwest, but now I'm thinking that if it's all flat, I don't know, is it so flat there that it's actually like the ocean? Because if it is, then you would be, no, of course there are no ships there in the Midwest. uh, and a car maybe. No, I don't know. No, no, forget about that. I was thinking if it's all flat, something with a pole, something tall, you would have the same effect when it's far away, and it will vanish behind the sink behind the horizon like that. But I don't know. Um, it's not all flat. Parts are flat. Oh, okay. Um, yeah, but flat earthers, they do have mm, supporters all around the globe. um, let's see. Um, Now, my books. Now, if you want to know more about my books, you can go to the website address, and maybe you can see the website address on the screen. They are not in English as per today, and the reason is that I don't have a book deal with an English language publisher yet. It seems to be very difficult. They are available in 10 languages, very soon 10 languages, Spanish included now, from May, I think. Spanish in May or June. So, yeah. But the English edition needs to happen as well. I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping for that. I've written many books. I've written more than 20 books. Galadriel, thank you. Thank you. Sailing off the edge of the earth. That's, yeah. Well, it is. There's one of these Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Don't they sail across? They sail off the edge of the world there, don't they? To save Jack Sparrow from some kind of after death place. Uh, yeah. Yes, my book, Isaac, I published that on my own publishing company, actually. And it was published shortly before COVID. And it is about a flu like disease which changes the life of the main character a lot. Ras Sebastian says, "Are you scared of feminism?" I don't know what you mean by that, actually. Um, but it goes like this, people will say, "Are you for or against feminism?" And if you say, "Oh, no, I don't like feminism," they will say, "Well, feminism," or rather, I would ask, "What is feminism?" And people will say, "It's just equal rights for men and women." And I will say, "I absolutely support that." Um, but it's not really that anymore, is it? It's become something else. Um, and that is why so many women today say that they do not support feminism. No, that's not what they're saying. They are saying that they do not see themselves as feminists. And I've heard it. Many people are saying that. They don't see. I mean, so here in Norway, it's a very it's a country where equal rights and all of that, and it's good. It's good, but you will it's not something that we talk about a lot. It really isn't. But the times up through my adult life when I have talked about this with women, then they will not say, "Oh, I'm not interested." Well, they will say, "I'm not interested." They will not say that, "Oh, I'm a feminist," and all of that. Sometimes very young, like 20-year-olds, students, female students, they might say that, but a woman with a family and kids and so on, they don't like that. They seem to not like that. Um, and I think that's a good thing because it means that we have reached equality, at least in this part of the world, you know. And if you have been following this channel for a while, you know that I absolutely support equal opportunities for men and women. Um, you know, but what we are seeing now that we are talking about feminism, is a very okay, so here's my take on this. What feminism has become now in the West, we must not forget that feminism is extremely important in African countries. I mean, places where women do not have, and Muslim countries, it needs to be implemented there because it's cruel how it is now. But okay, in the West, feminism now in the West is something else. I will say it's destructive towards women and men because it just creates a conflict that shouldn't have to be there. And I think it's alienating. That's the word I was looking for. Alienating people, men and women, from each other. So yeah, that's what I think, and it seems to be a general attitude among at least uh, both men and especially women here in Norway. You know, and women want to be women. They do not want to act as men. and that shouldn't surprise anyone, really. Uh, and it doesn't mean that a woman should just do, she should stay in the kitchen and care for the kids. That's all that she should do. That's no, that's not what I'm talking about, of course. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's about doing what you want. It's about having the freedom to do what you want, to live how you want to live. Um, you know, some women like to do, I don't know, to fix the, if something's broken in the house, she will fix that. Some women like that, some women don't like that, and do what you want. It's very simple. But feminism now has become, you shouldn't do what you want. You should do one of the things here on this list that we in this feminist group have written for you, and that's how you should live your life. You know, that's I don't like that. And we are seeing, of course, that those young guys with limited life experience and their experience with women is limited to their them being them not having much success in the local. No, they're not going out anymore. I was going to say the local nightclub. Now it's the online dating app. Yeah, so that's their limited experience with women, and they are not having success with they're not being lucky with the women there. So yeah, so women are bad according to them. So you have the Andrew Tates, and you have all the little clones. You have the manosphere with and all of that. They're just the male equivalent of feminists, right? So I mean, this is not complicated. I mean, it really is not complicated. And and here comes Uncle Bjorn's dating advice. Yeah, for Uncle Bjorn's dating advice for young people, young men, right? So try not to act like a complete fool. I was going to use a rude word, but I won't. Try to be interested in her as a human being. Try to be nice. Don't be too pushy, and just be a nice person. Um, and they say nice guys finish last. I don't think that's true. You know, just be a man, be kind, be solid, a solid person. And if you can't, we're not perfect, and you shouldn't be ashamed of not being perfect. Um, you will probably have some imperfections. We all have. No shame in that. Just be honest about that. You know. Um, you will give someone a lucky young lady that human experience, that experience of connecting with another human being, which is quite rare these days. So that's Uncle Björn's dating advice. Yes. So um, um, Muriel says spot on. Well, thank you. Thank you. B. Hendrik says at least nice guys actually finish. Yes. I'll make, here comes a little joke. It's better to finish last than to finish too early. Yeah, I had to say that because it was funny. It is funny. Yes. Mundus vulticipi ergo deca. Yeah, okay. Says dating advice works. Is that dating advice I gave you now? You mean works if you look a certain way and have enough social capital? You know what? I think anyone can look halfway decent. You know, it's about taking care of yourself. Self-love, which means that you shouldn't just eat crap, you shouldn't eat too much. Get active, get physical, work out. You don't have to you don't have to look like a bodybuilder. You just take care of yourself, tidy up how you look a little bit. Look is talking. But yeah, go to the gym, spend time outside, go for walks, eat real food, and try to be socially active. And it's, I think anyone, if they do that, they will be, that's enough, It is enough because very few, a lot of people are not doing that. So, yeah. Social capital, I don't know. What is that? I don't know. Yeah, Shinobi says it's healthy to be social. Humans need face-to-face interaction. Yes, we do. Yeah, I can tell you one thing concerning diet. I'm coming off caffeine completely. Because I think it's not healthy. We live in a caffeinated culture, but I think it's the best thing to do. Like completely. I won't even drink Coca-Cola. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but that's one thing. I think it's the right. I never liked coffee, so that one is easy. But I think it's the right thing to do. Yeah, sharp canines. Obviously, you're saying it might contribute to your headaches. It relieves the pain a little bit, but also it can long term contribute to headaches. So that is why I'm doing it. It's not for everyone, but that's one thing. And I think I'm a big believer in eating real food. You know, I think that's more important than the discussion about being carnivore or vegan. I think I'll give you some shocking numbers here. One shocking number. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Ultra processed food. It's not that it's been processed. It's that they put things in it that are not really food. We're not supposed to eat it. Ultra processed food. And those are the numbers for Norway, and it's probably I'll give you the numbers for Norway now, and you'll be shocked. And it's probably the same for other countries. Around 50% of energy in a Norwegian diet, like 50% of your calories now here in Norway, is coming from processed food. 50%. And we wonder why people are going around being depressed and sick. 50%. Half of what you eat being processed food. Wow. And I was shocked. You can never, like, okay, so what does that mean? If you eat if you eat that much processed food, you will constantly be digesting things that are not food. And that is going to make you sick one way or the other. And I think it's extremely difficult to, let's say you're depressed. A lot of people are depressed. I suffer sometimes from depression myself. It's a physiological thing as well. And if you've been depressed for a while, it's going to become a physiological thing. And you can't think your way out of that. If your body is chemically in a depressed state, you can't think your way out of that. And when you constantly add things to your system that are not food, that will have an effect on your body and your mind. Your body and your mind is the same thing. Then you can't get well. It's impossible. So straight after the nationals, which is 1 week from today, a national competition in powerlifting. So I'm competing there. I'm competing there in a week from now. So after that, because I don't want to make any changes right now before that, and after that, straight after that, clean eating, and I'll cut down on the caffeine until it's zero within a month or two. Never going back. I'm telling you, it's something I believe everyone should do. Yeah. And it's so telling. I know I've been talking for 2.5 hours now. It's been nice. I hope you have enjoyed it so far. But it's very telling that if you go to, have you been to the World Economic Forum website? Have you seen their circle with every aspect of your life in there? Have you seen that? You can pretty much go there, and that's the blueprint for future society, future culture that we live in, basically, because it's they've been following that blueprint up until now. It's scary. And if you look at how they believe that we should eat, it gets even scarier. Most of you know this already, but they want you to eat a mostly vegan diet that is very heavily influenced, or where a lot of your calories will be coming from ultra processed food. And it's funny because the pictures are all about vegetables and fruit. That's not what people will be eating. They will be eating people will constantly be eating a sort of a porridge or a soup mixture made out of things like, first of all, taste additives, because it tastes like crap. Soy, which is basically just injecting yourself with estrogen. Salts, wheat, um, a lot of grains, grain oils, no, seed oils, I mean. And all of these things, I can't even name them because it's just there to make the food look, to make it look colorful and taste a certain way. And I mean, people will they will be very sick and very fat. It is, by the way, how you should eat if you want to be fat. You know, yeah, and sugar, of course, sugar. Um, yeah, emulsifiers, dyes, yes. Yeah, that's how they want you to eat. And they will also be telling you that if you have a steak, it's very unhealthy and it's killing the planet. Now, I've said before, if you do not eat animal protein because of ethical reasons, I absolutely respect that. But that's not what these people are saying. They are saying that a steak is unhealthy. You should rather eat this thing here, which consists of soy additives that make it look have a certain color and a certain taste, and so it's soy and some other things in there. I mean, that's healthy for you. That's good for you. But the steak is bad. No. No. um, yeah, it's even worse in the USA because of the laws. But that's going to. I think that might change. Might be. Well, now I don't know, but yeah, we should eat clean food. How to accept soy milk is just a milk introducing itself in Spanish. Yeah. Galadriel is mixed. Is yeah, typical mixture here things. I'll just read your comment. Water, soy protein, concentrate, sunflower oil, coconut oil, natural flavors. Yeah, dextrose, starch, yeast extract, soy, salt. Yeah. Um, yeah, plastics, of course. Why do they still wrap food in plastic? Now, you're not supposed to have plastic bags for shopping, but all the food you buy has been wrapped in plastic. Why? Um, so, yeah, wait till the digital ID and not being allowed to. Yeah, yeah. It's in in UK now, isn't it? Isn't like they have this introduction now of your carbon footprint app or something? Is that the UK or was it another country? Basically, they will add everything up, everything you buy, and it will calculate your carbon footprint. So at the end of the day, it will say that, oh, you've been a bad boy or bad girl, and you can't have a steak this week because you're such a bad boy or bad girl. Oh, Ian is in the UK, not heard of it. Maybe it was a different country. It's one of the European countries. I can try to find out. Um, but it's coming, In a couple of years, it will be here. And we should not give in. We should not give up. I mean, there is always hunting. I'm not a fan of hunting. I don't hunt myself, but I mean, might be necessary in the future. Yeah. Okay. Now, we have been talking for 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's a new record, I think. Wonderful. For me, a nice way to start the Saturday morning. Hope you have been enjoying our little chat. And also, please help my main channel. My main channel is suffering. It's struggling. My main channel, it's linked to in the video description. Please help that by watching a couple of the videos there. And I have a new video which will be up in 12 hours, a little bit less than 12 hours in the main channel, which has my name. And I think you might find it interesting. Okay. Wonderful. I'll be back very soon. And as Carola says, have a wonderful day or night, everyone. Thank you to you as well. Wonderful. We'll keep talking. Okay. Bye-bye.